As you know, I have tried and failed to bleed Misty's cooling system twice now, but I've recently realised that both those attempts were always doomed to failure because of a mistake I made 4 years ago. Back when I replaced the sump, I got one from Japan that didn't have an oil level sender, so I deleted that by splicing the wires together to bypass the signal. Unfortunately, it turns out I spliced the wrong wires and I've accidentally wired the signal from the sensor into the coolant temperature gauge. I've been back and watched all the footage of me trying to bleed this car's cooling system, and every time I never let it run for more than about a minute, and usually what happens is the coolant needle starts rising up to the top. And it turns out that's kind of how the oil level sensor used to work. You get about 40 seconds of grace period, I suppose, to make sure you didn't get erroneous readings, and then if you had 40 seconds with low oil level, it would trigger a warning light on the dash. So I think what I've done is wired that warning light into the sensor signal, so after 40 seconds or so, it sends a high level and the needle starts rising. Thank you to the commenter who pointed this out to me. They had exactly the same issue. I'm afraid I can't think of your name right now, but I'll put it here. Thank you so much, because without you, I don't think I ever would have realised this. So now I'm going to unsplice those wires, try and find a better way of bypassing the sensor. Worst case scenario, I'll just live with the low oil level light on the dash for now. I just want to get a working temperature gauge so I can bleed the cooling system. This is the scene of the crime, this bit here. So what I did was I traced the wires from the oil level sender to 2 pins on this plug. One was a signal, one was an earth. Now, knowing what I know now, I know that was a stupid thing to do because earths are usually shared. So I'm going to undo that, rejoin those wires here, try and find where I splice them down somewhere under the engine, which is going to be a challenge now the engine is back in. I managed to get this free and untape it. Problem is, because I cut so much wire out of this, I can't rejoin them. I'm going to need to put some extra wire in to bridge it. Got those both soldered, heat shrinked and all taped in place. One thing I've definitely discovered is I need to invest in a better soldering iron. This thing is just painfully slow and not hot enough and has no temperature controls and is generally cheap and crap. So this would have been a lot easier with a better soldering iron, but it is done. So put this all back together and hope it works. This is the state of Misty right now. Kind of half stripped down in preparation for taking the engine out, which we ended up not doing when we realised it wasn't a head gasket. So the plan is just to kind of put everything back together and then have another go at flushing the coolant. But before I do that, there was an issue under here that had been bothering me for a while since we put the replacement gearbox in and put the engine back in and everything, was just a constant drip of oil from the bottom of the gearbox. And as you can see here, I've cleaned it up, so I was trying to figure out where it's actually coming from. And before I cleaned it up and then the oil would reappear, and I was concerned that the leak was actually in the gearbox. It seemed to be coming from around here, which meant actually the split in the casing, which would have been a nightmare. But then I noticed actually the leak seemed to be coming from above. And I think I've tracked it down to this, which I think is a vacuum canister for the variable intake runners. So I've repositioned that so that it's kind of angled down. And it's been a few days and absolutely nothing on the cardboard, no more drips. So what I'm going to do now is remove this canister and see if I can open it up, find out why it's leaking and possibly fix it. Right, this is the doodle in question. I don't know what you can see, but there's sort of signs of moisture around here. So what I think I'll do, try and pop this metal top off and take it from there. My new O-ring has finally arrived, and you can see it compared to one that I took out. So you can see it's quite a bit thicker, so hopefully that will keep it sealed. Let's just see. Oh, that is a nice fit. I'm happy with that. So now let's just put this thing back on and clamp it back down again. Yeah, you can see they're all clamped in pretty good. Just go and put it back on the car. And there it is, back in place, hopefully not leaking anymore. Now, next job is to start putting back everything we took off in preparation for removing the engine. Now this is annoying. For some reason, I didn't install the upper timing cover. I think I just wanted to make sure everything was working properly and spinning properly before doing that. But it turns out it's really hard to get it back in again. I've already had to remove the engine mount over here and part of this bracket, but I still can't get it past this bracket. And to remove this bracket, there's 2 bolts down there and 1 underneath that I literally cannot get to. I would have to remove the engine mounts from the front and rear and lift the whole engine up to get to it. So what I've ended up doing instead is actually having to file a small notch in the timing cover. It should still make a seal in there. It's not ideal, but it's the best I could come up with. So here's a lesson for anyone else who's doing this kind of thing. Get the timing cover on early before you start putting the engine back in place. I'm annoyed I had to do it, but it worked. I've got the timing cover in, now I can bolt it up and start putting this engine mount back in. And this is it. Time to get Misty back on her wheels for the first time in, I don't even know how long. Good few months. Fucking hell. Wow. Whoa. That nearly got me. That nearly fucking took my fingers off. That was so stupid. I did not mean to twist that handle. Shit. And there she is. Back down to her almost proper height. Suspension needs to settle and stuff. That's as much coolant as you'll take for now, and I've just put a load of fuel in. And if we come around to the frunk, or the fruit as we call it in the UK, these hoses have both got coolant in them to about the same level as the filler neck, so that's all good. Ready to try and bleed the coolant, but first, just going to move Misty back to the door so I don't gas myself. And after what happened last time, I'm not taking any chances. Here we go. Let's see if she starts. Oil pressure's good. I've now been running her for over 2 minutes, longest I've ever run her, and the coolant needle is still on cold, so I think that fix has done it. "7 minutes and coolant temp is still good." It was all going so well until my makeshift funnel fell off and covered everything in coolant. So I'm going to turn it off, let it cool down, dry it all off, and then try again. But I think we're pretty much there, to be honest. Right, so I've just run her up a couple more times and topped up. Coolant level is no longer dropping, so I'm going to, for now at least, call that done. And you know, first few drives always have some coolant with me just in case. So tighten that up properly. Then I just need to top up this overflow tank and should be good to go. Well, now I just need to get Misty back forward in the workshop so that I can continue working on her in preparation for the MOT. I could of course push her the way I pushed her back, but I got a running car now. I should be able to drive her forward. I'd love to go and take her out for a proper drive, but unfortunately it's dark. There's usually nails and stuff outside the workshop. I haven't tightened up all the suspension linkages, so this will have to do. Wish me luck. Right, started. She's in gear now. I've never used this gearbox before. She moves. Oh my god, this is so cool. Wow. So I probably drove her about 5 meters there, but that's the furthest I've gone in this car in about 6 years, and it's quite a feeling, I've got to admit. You know, so much has happened since we started this project. We worked on it for our wedding car, we got it fixed, it was running, and then life kind of got in the way, and we moved house, we bought a house, we've had kids, we've had losses. So much has happened, and Misty's just always been there, just waiting in the background, just quietly doing little things here and there, and it just feels so good to finally actually be getting somewhere, to be able to drive her, even if it is just 5 meters up the workshop. That's such a good feeling. I can't describe it. I'm so happy stuff is happening. I think that's a pretty good place to leave it. I mean, she drives. We all saw it. You were there. 5 meters still counts. She drove. I am so freaking happy. I cannot describe it. It's been so long coming. There's so many things we've changed, the untested gearbox, the new clutch, all these things. First time we've done anything like that, first time trying it out, it all seems to work. So the next thing to do is just get her ready for the MOT, which is our annual safety inspection. I've actually got that booked for 4 days' time on Monday the 11th, so chances are by the time you see this video, that's already happened. That's it for now. As always, thank you to our patrons, names all here. You can support us if you want, link in the description, and next time, prepping for the MOT and hopefully passing.